Jia thinks things are moving too fast until she realizes that Minchel has placed a plug in her ear. Minchel did this so Jia could sleep peacefully, but Jia is confused about what he means by this. Minchel explains that Jia is scared of lightning, but Jia doesn't see how that's relevant and denies it. Minchel is puzzled because Jia flinches every time there's lightning, especially when it rains. Jia, however, thinks she reacts this way because of Mitchell's actions. Mitchell presses on, asking if she isn't scared, then why did she agree that Minchel was right when he hugged her? After a moment of thought, Jia feels embarrassed because she realizes it was actually Minchel's hug that comforted her. She admits, burying her head into Mitchell's chest, that she is terrified of lightning. Minchel, upon hearing this, smiles, thinking his guess was right, and wishes Jia good night after putting on his sleeping mask. Jia reflects on Minchel's behavior, finding him sly like a fox. He can be dense at times, but also seems to do what Jia subconsciously wants, making it impossible for her to predict his actions. A little later, Jia realizes that Minchel is just really dense. He's asleep, giving her a tight bear hug, and Jia feels trapped. She tries to escape, but Minchel's strength, even in his sleep, is too much for her to handle. Moving the wrong way would be impossible without feeling overwhelmed by his hold. Jia calls out to him to wake up, but he continues hugging her tightly. The next morning, Mitchell's mum is drinking something when she notices Mouse, Mitchell's cat, trying to sneak into a room. After she lets the cat in, Mitchell's mum looks inside and sees Minchel and Jia peacefully sleeping in unorthodox positions, both uncovered by sheets. She quietly leaves the room, not disturbing them. Later in the morning, Jia wakes up and stares down the meal Mitchell's mum made. Rice with various side dishes. Just looking at the spread makes Jia's stomach feel uneasy. She realizes this is bad. She didn't get enough sleep. As they start eating, Jia thinks the scene could be straight out of a morning drama. She anticipates being scolded, maybe even slapped with kimchi, though she figures Mitchell's mum probably won't go that far. Noticing that Jia isn't eating, Mitchell's mum asks if something's wrong and wonders if the food isn't to Jia's liking. Jia says she's fine, though she worries that if she doesn't eat, it'll upset her stomach. Mitchell comments on Jia's red eyes and asks if she's not sleeping well. Jia responds that it's due to Mitchell's terrible sleeping habits. Suddenly, Mitchell's mum asks Jia if she has time to talk one-on-one after they eat. Jia is shocked and uncertain about what Mitchell's mum wants to say. As they walk outside, Jia tries to figure out why she's been summoned. She wonders if they acted too much like a lovey-dovey couple, and maybe Mitchell's mum sensed something and caught her acting. Mitchell's mum stops and hands Jia an envelope. Jia is confused, but Mitchell's mum clarifies that it's money, similar to what mother-in-laws do for daughter-in-laws in dramas. She tells Jia to do something with Mitchell and that she'll give her more if she needs it. Jia immediately thinks this might be about a divorce, though it's not entirely clear. Jia asks if Mitchell's mum is joking and tries to back out of the situation. Mitchell's mum laughs and says she was kidding. Jia is still confused, and Mitchell's mum explains she just wanted to lighten the mood because Jia seemed tense. Jia finds it hard to tell when Mitchell's mum is joking, and she's completely confused about what's inside the envelope. Mitchell's mum tells her to take a look, and, to Jia's shock, it's their marriage contract. Mitchell's mum explains that she wasn't specifically looking for it. She couldn't sleep, thought she'd just give them some pocket money and planned to leave, but then she got curious and wanted to see their wedding photos. While searching for them, she found the contract. She then asks Jia if she and Minchel have a sham marriage. Jia is taken aback, realizing their operation has been compromised. She quickly tries to cover it up by saying it's not what it looks like, a typical move that only confirms the obvious. Jia knows their execution was sloppy. They should have hidden it somewhere more secure than behind their wedding photos. Unsure of what to do, Jia thinks she's screwed, but then Minchel's mum surprises her by saying it's fine because she knew about it from the start. Jia's confused, and Minchel's mum continues, explaining that from her perspective, it made sense. Minchel had come home on New Year's, and she'd signed him up for a marriage matchmaker. Only 2 hours later, Minchel brought over a girl he had decided to marry, and the girl just happened to be Jia. someone Minchell had known his entire life. Of course, it was suspicious, but Minchell's mum was glad that he married Jia because, deep down, she had always wished for this outcome. She told Jia to take good care of Minchell and said she would cheer them on. Jia was confused because she thought Mitchell's mum would try to break them up, now that she knew their marriage was a sham. But Mitchell's mum didn't see any point in breaking up a perfectly functioning couple. If Jia and Minchell wanted to split, that was up to them to figure out, since they were adults. Jia hadn't realized this until now. Mitchell's mum had been concerned about their relationship before visiting, but after seeing them together, she was relieved to see that they were both happy. She was also comforted to see that Jia was the same person she'd known a long time ago. Jia was taken aback by this. Later, as Mitchell's mum rode in a taxi, she commented that dealing with her must have been tiring. Jia quickly denied this. Before leaving, Mitchell's mum said that she hoped their firstborn would be a daughter. Jia was embarrassed, and Mitchell's mum left. Despite being a fake couple, Jia and Mitchell had survived the visit from Mitchell's mum. They even got pocket money, which made it seem like they had scammed her. Regardless, Jia and Mitchell complimented each other on how well they had handled it. Suddenly, Mitchell asked if he could ask Jia something. Jia didn't respond, but Mitchell asked the question anyway. He wanted to know if his mother had said anything weird. As Jia pondered this, she recalled how she had told Mitchell's mum that their marriage wasn't loveless because she had fallen for Mitchell. Mitchell's mum thought their relationship was just an act, but Jia insisted it was real. Instead of answering Mitchell's question directly, she started vigorously pounding on his back, realizing that something needed to be done about the situation. Jia asked Minchil if they should start dating for real. Minchil was confused, so Jia attempted to justify her suggestion, explaining that to avoid situations like this, where they had to pretend to be a lovey-dovey couple, they should just become a real couple. Suddenly, Minchil grabbed Jia's hand and said he was fine with becoming a real couple, but the reason he wanted to wasn't for the same reason Jia suggested. He then pinned her to the wall and confessed that he liked her and wanted them to start dating. Jia was taken aback and asked if Minchil liked her romantically. Minchil nodded to confirm it. Jia asked when he started feeling this way, and Minchil replied, "Not since when, even now," implying that he probably had feelings for her for a long time. Jia was still confused, but Minchil simply repeated that he liked her. Jia looked away, embarrassed, and then said that if Minchil really liked her, then if he kissed her in the next 5 seconds, she would decide how to move forward. Minchil was shocked and concerned about doing this in public. Jia, feeling embarrassed, pointed out that Minchil had already slammed her against the wall and held her hands, so it wouldn't make a difference if he kissed her now. She then began counting down from 5. Minchil leaned in to kiss her, but just before he could, a woman entered the elevator they were in. Startled, both Minchil and Jia quickly separated. The woman was confused, but then realized what had been going on and started to leave the elevator. Jia stopped her, saying it wasn't what it looked like, though of course it was exactly what it looked like. The woman began to sweat profusely due to the awkward tension in the air. The elevator seemed to be moving incredibly slowly. Jia tried to calm herself down, reflecting on what had just happened. What she had done felt too fast, and her judgment seemed off today. Suddenly, Minchil tapped Jia on the shoulder and motioned for her to look at her phone. Minchil had texted her, asking if it was okay for him to kiss her 5 seconds from now, since they had been interrupted. Jia was shocked and asked Minchil if he was crazy, especially since there was someone right in front of them. Without warning, Mitchell grabbed Jia's shoulder with one hand and swiftly pulled her toward him. Meanwhile, Mitchell's mum was in a car, flipping through a book containing a photo of Jia and Mitchell sleeping together as kids. In the picture, they were in the same position they had been sleeping in last night. She thought it would be nice if they were more honest with each other. Minchil pulled Jia in and kissed her aggressively. After they separated, Jia quickly pulled herself back in and kissed him even more intensely. Her kiss knocked Minchil's glasses askew, and after he adjusted them, they continued kissing. With that, Minchil and Jia were officially a couple. The woman in the elevator with them was disgusted and decided to pretend she hadn't seen anything. Back in their primary school days, there had been a doodle drawn on the board suggesting that Jia and Mincheol were in love with each other. 20 years later, that doodle had become a reality. They were now in love with each other. Later at the cafe, Nari asks if Jia has seen a dermatologist recently because her skin is glowing. Jia happily responds, teasing that Nari won't get anything out of complimenting her. But Nari wasn't actually complimenting her, she just wanted to know which place Jia had gone to. Then Nari realizes that it might not be Jia's skin but rather her expression that has changed, and suggests that Jia might have engaged in intense adult activities with Mincheol. Jia gets embarrassed and tells Nari to focus on her job. In response, Nari clings to Jia for protection, commenting that the more Jia denies it, the more true it seems. Jia didn't realize her expression had changed so much, but she assumes it's because Mincheol has been bringing her gifts after work. Having someone think about her and share their happiness with her has been the best feeling. However, every day after work, Mincheol continues to bring home large amounts of food as gifts. Jia accepts them but is not impressed. It's just too much food. Even Mouse agrees that it's too much. Jia knows Mincheol enjoys bringing her gifts, but she doesn't want to kill his vibe since he's doing it out of love for her. One day, Jia spots a scale in the distance. When she steps on it, a beam of light shines from the apartment, indicating that she's gained weight. Mincheol is now banned from bringing food home from work. He's confused, but Jia explains that if he keeps bringing her food, she'll gain more weight. She then corrects herself, admitting that she's already gained some weight. Mincheol comments that the food has 0 calories if you enjoy it, but the truth is, he hasn't even eaten any of it himself. He's been too busy trying to maintain his gains by eating chicken breast. Jia, amused, suggests that Mincheol get her something other than food if he's going to continue with the gifts. Mincheol points out that Jia once said she prefers consumable items over novelty ones, and Jia is shocked that he remembered. However, Mincheol concedes and says he will get something else, like flowers. Jia is fine with this, as long as it's not too often. The next day, Mincheol returns from work with a massive array of flowers, and Jia is taken aback. Technically, Mincheol did exactly what Jia had suggested. He brought flowers. Mincheol asks her what's wrong, and Jia asks why he bought such a large amount. Mincheol justifies it by saying Jia said flowers were okay, and since bigger is better, he went all out. He also mentions that he noticed they were on sale, but Jia tells him the price isn't the problem, it's the scale of the gift. Jia sits down and tells Mincheol that his gifts are becoming a burden. Mincheol is confused, so Jia explains that it got annoying after the first 2 times. While she's grateful for the gifts, they're just too much, and make her question if she got into a relationship just to receive presents. Mincheol understands and apologizes, but Jia quickly reassures him that he doesn't need to apologize. She then asks why he bought so many gifts in the first place. Mincheol answers that he did it to make her happy, and Jia points out that's exactly the problem. She doesn't want gifts, she wants Mincheol himself. Before she can finish her sentence, Jia gets embarrassed and walks away, saying that buying gifts is banned. However, Mincheol grabs her arm and insists she finish her sentence. Jia clarifies that there are other ways for him to make her happy besides buying gifts. Mincheol, looking a little mischievous, asks what those ways are. Jia is confused, but Mincheol clarifies that since she said she wanted something other than gifts, he wants to know exactly what that is. With a seductive smile, he grabs Jia's hand and says that he needs to know this crucial information, so he doesn't make the same mistake again. Jia and Mincheol stare at each other blankly for a moment, and then Jia grins, saying that Mincheol is amazing. Mincheol, still confused, asks what she means. Jia gets a little angry, saying that Mincheol is pretending not to understand and using it to mess with her. She then takes his glasses off his face and puts them on her own, teasing him for acting so high and mighty. Mincheol is still confused and asks Jia to clarify. He wonders if he did something wrong, and Jia assures him that he didn't while putting his glasses back on his face. As she walks away, she says that she's actually complimenting him and gives him an 80/100 for today, which means he needs to try harder next time.